Video Game Hunter here, and welcome to my review. Today, I'm reviewing something that's not too old, but pretty new that came out late last year. It was something I was really interested in owning when I first heard about it, but it was only released in Japan until they announced it last year at E3 saying it was coming here to the US. And I knew I had to have it. And that was the PlayStation TV. A device that allows me to play one of my favorite handheld systems, the PlayStation Vita, on my own personal television. So, no further ado, let's take a look.
First, let's take a quick look at the system itself. First thing you really notice is how small this thing really is, which is great because this thing takes up a lot less shelf space than any other system I currently have. Now on the right side of the system, there's a flap we can open up and put your games in. But sometimes it can be a bit hard to open when it really should be easy. So you really need to use your fingernail to dig in and open this thing up. On the back side of the system, you of course have your power button, a memory card slot, which by the way, you can use the same memory card from your Vita and use it on the PlayStation TV, and go back and forth with your saved data. But there's also a 1GB internal storage in the system, which isn't really much if you're planning on downloading game content or any other type of files. Moving on, you also got your USB port, but I'm sadly to say that the only reason that thing is there so you can register and charge your controller. Which saddens me because you can't use your USB stick to transfer pictures or music. But the worst part for me is that I can't use my Sony Gold wireless headset on this, which is a total bummer. Because if someone is sleeping in my house, I have no choice but to turn down my TV volume way down, since they really are light sleepers. However, the good news is that not only can you use the PS3 controller on here, but the PS4 as well. But I'll get into more of that later on. Now, other than that, you also got your HDMI port, your Ethernet port, just in case you prefer the wired over the wireless signal. Then, of course, you got your power port.
So basically, this thing has everything you need to play on your PlayStation TV. Except for the fact you can't use your golden wireless headset on this. Which again, is a complete bummer. Oh, Sony, what were you thinking? Now that said, let me show you guys the main selection screen. But before I do, I think now is a good time to let you guys know that Sony did in fact put in that stupid lock on the PlayStation TV. The HDCP, which prevents you from recording any game footage from the system. But luckily, there is a way around this by using an HDMI splitter, and I'll put a link down below from the one I'm using.
Alright, let's take a look at the menu screen and some of the apps. Now, it really comes to no surprise that they kept the menu the same way like you see on the Vita. And you can organize and make photos for your apps and customize your wallpaper for each section of your selection screen. So this part is perfect, and I give this 2 thumbs up for making this easy to organize and changing my wallpaper for my personal preference. However, there's some things we need to discuss, and it's about some of the apps. One thing about the apps is that not all programs that you can use on the Vita will work on here, and so far I'm only noticing the video streaming programs like YouTube or Netflix, which is a real shame because I think this will be the ideal apps to watch on my television. But then again, if you have other systems like a PS4 or Xbox One hooked up to the same TV, then yeah, this is not a big deal. However, some of the other apps that do work on here, I don't really recommend because they really meant to be on the mobile devices, like the internet browser or Facebook. Now, the most recommended app I thought was really useful besides the Vita games is the Content Manager, which you also need to download this program on your personal computer to make this thing work. But it allows you to back up your data and transfer your files like the picture, music, videos, and other apps. Now let's talk about the app that Sony was so proud to announce during E3 last year, and that is the PS4 Link. What this app does, it allows you to stream your PS4 that's in another room to your PlayStation TV. And for starters, you really do need a good internet to get this thing to work, and I was able to get a pretty good picture for most of the time. But there were times, but not often, where the picture got really pixelated, but it was able to go back to normal seconds later. Now, the main challenge I did face during the stream was my controller response, which was getting delayed a little, but it was kind of manageable until I got to certain parts of my game where it got way too difficult and I could barely work around the delays. And also, out of curiosity, I did try to stream YouTube and Netflix through my PS4 to my PlayStation TV, and again, it does not work. Finally, let's get to the main event of this review, the games. Now, some of you may already know that not all video games will work on the PlayStation TV, and I do have a theory what games will work and which ones won't. Any game, even though it's optional, contains any motion controls is most likely won't work on here, which is pretty sad since both the PS3 and the PS4 both have motion controls. The only real excuse I can think of as to why they didn't include this feature, because they wanted to cut costs. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't mind paying an extra $50 or $100 just to make sure I can play all my games and have all my control functions. Now remember, this is just my theory. I'm sure there might be other reasons why they couldn't add this feature. Now that said, since I'm already talking about the controllers, and I already mentioned that you can use the PS3 and the PS4 controls, I guess the next thing we need to talk about is the touchscreen. And to keep it simple, I so do not recommend using the PS3 controller. And you're probably wondering, how in the world can you use the touchscreen on the PS3 when there's no touchpad like the PS4? Well, in the PlayStation TV setting menu, they do give instructions on how to use the touchscreen function on a PS3 controller. Just by clicking on the left analog stick, you can use the touchscreen, and clicking on the right stick will allow you to use the rear touchpad. But overall, it's so not worth learning all this just to do a simple swipe movement during the game. It's way too slippery, and it really gets frustrating for something that should be really simple to do. So I say get yourself a PS4 controller and use that touchpad. It's so much easier. Last thing I like to say about the controls is that you can hook up multiple controllers on this system, which means in some point down the road, they might release a Vita game where you and your friends can play on the same TV, which will be pretty neat for some fighting games. So let's talk about the gameplay and how they look on your home television. For the most part, they look pretty darn good, but you will notice depending on the style of graphics they used, will look a bit jagged or a bit blurry on the edge of the characters or on the objects. But it's really not an issue as long as I can see everything on the screen. But the simple color design and text looks fine. However, when you're watching some cinematic cutscene like Persona 4 Golden, you will notice some pixels on the screen, but not too much to ruin the show. But not all games are like this. Senran Kagura SV, the opening cutscene looks fantastic, and as far as I'm aware, I don't see any pixels.
So overall, do I recommend this? Actually, it depends on your preference. Are you happy with the current Vita and you like carrying around your games and play on the go and play whatever video games you want? Or or you're one of those people who hate handhelds and prefer playing your games on a TV screen. Even though you're limited to what games you can play on the PlayStation TV, if so, I kind of recommend doing a little more research to see what games you're interested in and see if those games will work on here. But personally, I only bought this so I can record some game footage for my YouTube channel, and that actually requires me to buy an HDMI splitter to bypass that HDCP lock. But my biggest complaint is, of course, that I can't use my PlayStation Gold wireless headset. But I have read that if your headphones have Bluetooth, you can use that. But I don't have anything like that at the moment, so I wasn't able to test that out. Well, that's it for today. This is the Video Game Hunter, and until next time, goodbye.